I'm starting to think the re-release made things worse. What's going on, everybody? Republic Cinema here, and in this video, we're going to be doing a 1.5 year throwback of the Buzzworthy reissue of the Transformers Studio Series 44 Optimus Prime. You know, the one that comes with the trailer and the jetpack and 6 accessories. Yeah, that guy. Now, this review is pretty late, as this figure came out sometime around the tail end of January of 2023. It's now the June of 2024, so this reissue is about 1.5 years old. I've actually had this guy ever since the release. I never bothered to do a review. I believe at the time I bought this guy, I already did a review of the original release of the Studio Series 44 Optimus Prime, which I believe that review would have been like 8 months ago during that time. So I thought to myself it wouldn't have really made much sense to do another review of this figure. Well, anyways, time has passed, and now I think is the perfect time to do it. Hang on, didn't I do a review of the knockoff earlier? Oh my. So anyhow, this guy was a Buzzworthy Bumblebee because, well, the original version was pretty hard to find. So with Hasbro doing a reissue, this did wonders for the fans. The only problem was, much like his original release, the reissue was a little hard to find, because it was a Target exclusive as well. But hey, at least he was only $55, which is significantly lower than how much he's going for on eBay. Of course, this is what prompted him to fly off the shelves, never to be restocked again. Actually, I could be wrong on that one. But anyways, if I did a review on the original version, and I have the re-release, does that mean I have 2 of these? Yes, I have 2 of them. And no, they're not for sale. The story of how I got the original release Optimus Prime is a little complicating. I came across a nice little toy store that had a considerable amount of Transformers stock of Transformers figures that came from all sorts of different toy lines and timelines and eras. And they just so happened to have this guy for $120. So at that point, I was filled with delight that I could actually see one of these guys that I wanted it. So I bought him for $120. Oh, and this was before I realized he was missing a Gatling gun. But I was happy. I thought it was alright. Until, 5-6 months later, I come across a news source talking about a Buzzworthy reissue of this guy for $55. So, yeah, if I passed up on getting the original, which was already expensive, and waited to get this guy for half off, then, yeah, that would have been pretty smart, but no. In my defense, I didn't know there was going to be a Buzzworthy Bumblebee reissue of a very expensive figure, which I believe at the time was the most expensive Studio Series. It kind of went down, but anyways, a reissue of this guy was like the luck equivalent of Lego Star Wars making a Commander Cody minifigure. Or at least at the time, they ended up making a minifigure later that year. So anyways, when the Buzzworthy reissue came out, I had this idea where I could get the reissue and then find a way to sell this guy for $100 at least. I knew if I just put him on the market for $100, he would not have sold, especially during the time of the reissue. So I decided to auction the item, but no one decided to bid on him. So then I figured, you know what, I'll just stick with 2 of them for now, and I'll keep it that way. Although I gotta say, having 1 of these is enough, but just having 2 of them, sheesh. You're pretty much an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. Even the aftermarket pricing for the Buzzworthy reissue is just as astronomical as the original. Anyways, I think we should just talk about the figure and why he's worth so much. So starting off, painting and sculpting is really good. It is a slight redo of the original 32 Optimus Prime. The difference between this one and the 32 Optimus Prime is the arms on the 44 Optimus Prime have orange shading. The 32 does not. This is also from Dark of the Moon, so 44 Optimus has the 6-pack chest and just normal plastic windows. With the 32 Prime, it's the other way around. But other than that, the rest of the figure appears to be similar. Now, I know the head sculpt isn't all that accurate, but it's still a really nice head sculpt. Despite the entire head being blue, whatever little gray paint they decided to slap on the head, they used it well. Now, the quality on mine is not too shabby. Since this guy is still relatively new, despite being a year old, I haven't really messed around with him since I did have the original and messed around with that one more. His joints are a little tight, especially his hips and knees. I suppose the only minor complaint I have is the wheel on the left leg comes off a little easily, but then again, it's like that for the other side. In the original release, this wasn't the case. The wheels are a little bit more stiff. Or at least on my copy. But anywho, that's just one minor complaint, nothing too serious. I figured it's time we move on to accessories. So starting off with the primary weapon, it's just like the 32 Prime, only there's a little shade of paint that's scratched off. But anyways, here he is with his accessory. I suppose for weapon storage you could have it stored on the back, but of course we have a better source for weapon storage, which we'll get to in a second. There is also this shield, which it just stays right there. It's very awkward. I tried to improvise, but not even that works either. So overall, I believe the shield is like the worst accessory. After that, moving on to the sword. As you can see, I believe the top part over here is painted orange. And I noticed there's some Cybertronian hieroglyphics that look a little odd. But anyways, here Prime is with the sword. And then of course, one of the cooler accessories, his axe, which kind of looks like the Batman logo. Anyways, that will also go in his hand, which is a little hard to plug in there, but it's doable. And there you go. There's Optimus with his axe. However, I do prefer Optimus Prime holding his sword and his axe together. Now, real quick, moving on to the jetpack, which is a little bit on the wide side and does have hollow gaps, which of course sucks. At one point, I used to do this with the jetpack where I'd have his wings inverted, but I believe the more movie accurate version would be this, even though it looks odd. Oh, and of course there actually is a little bit of wing articulation. This moves around, as well as this swivels, and then there's of course this piece right here. I don't know if this counts as articulation, as it's more for transformation, but make of that what you will. And now for assembly. You might just want to put these upwards, and then just do that, do that, do that. Basically flatten his backpack. Upon moving this thing upwards, is supposed to tab onto that tab right there, but it doesn't want to stay in. And then when you come to attaching the jetpack onto his back, all you gotta do is just slide the thing right there. You just gotta make sure that these two tabs and slots conjoin together. And then the same thing for the other side as well. And that would be Optimus Prime with his jetpack, but he is missing two accessories, and I think we all know which ones they were to absolutely decimate Driller. That being his Gatling guns, which in the movie I believe could interchange from fully automatic to absolute grenade launchers. And there you go, there's Studio Series Dark of the Moon 44 Optimus geared up and ready to fly. I will say, however, the way the Gatling gun holds onto his hand is a little funky, but nothing too major of a complaint. Now, if you want to have the jetpack folded in, you're going to have to improvise a little bit, where you untab this piece right. Wow, now it wants to stay in. You might want to just hold it right there, have it flatten. Of course, nothing's going to tab in, but you move these down, and then I believe since this thing is like full of hollow gaps, it helps to just have them rest upon this big slot right there. Same thing for the other side, and there you go. There's a little bit of a more folded in Jetwing Optimus Prime. And of course there is another accessory, that being the rest of the trailer, which transforms into this big ol' arsenal, which of course there were multiple tabs and slots to where you can connect your weapon onto the arsenal thing. So of course you could just modify your weapon storage to your liking. And sometimes what I like to do is have the jetpack stored right there. However, I can never seem to get it unlopsided, if that's even a word. It worked better in the baiwei. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of Studio Series 44 Optimus Prime with its accessories. But anyways, now that the accessories are out of the way, we can finally move on to articulation. Starting off ball joint at the head, which allows the head to move up and down, and swivel. Full rotation at the arm, shoulder pad moves out, bend at the shoulder, bend at the elbow, bicep swivel, wrist swivel, waist swivel, legs can, forgot about the wheels. Anyways, you gotta move the wheels down for a further legs can spread. Leg can move forward, can't move backwards that much, no thanks to all of this. Bend at the knee. Knee pad moves up and down. Knee swivel. The foot can move up and down. And lastly, the foot can pivot from side to side. Anyways, moving on to size comparison. Starting off with the original release of the Transformers Studio Series Dark of the Moon 44 Optimus Prime. Real quick, I never explained how I could tell the difference between both of them, despite them being very identical, is that some of the tabs are broken on the original, whereas the newer one I kind of kept a little more safely. The original Studio Series 32 Optimus Prime, the original Studio Series 05 Optimus Prime, which is Optimus Prime before any of these other Optimus Primes. Still an underrated figure with underrated accessories. Baiwei Nemesis Prime, Ultra Magnus. Here he is next to another figure that I got in 2022, that being the SS-38 Optimus Prime. And then here he is next to the infamous, hard to find 102 Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime. Here he is next to his arsenal. Here he is next to a few of his fellow Target exclusive Buzzworthy Bumblebee wave mates, that being Bone Crusher and Ratchet. And now for most of the Autobot cast from Dark of the Moon from the Studio Series. Here he is next to Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Dino, Topspin, Roadbuster, Leadfoot, and Steeljaw. Ratchet. Then here's a G1 repaint of the Dark of the Moon mainline Ironhide, baiwei Ironhide, Sentinel Prime, which is another figure that was pretty expensive, still is expensive to this day. Shockwave, Leader Class Dark of the Moon Megatron with the... what is that guy called again? And lastly, here he is next to Little Prime. And then lastly, here he is next to the original mainline Dark of the Moon Jetwing Optimus Prime, which was an Amazon exclusive. This thing was a go-to for a Christmas gift, and I just so happen to be one of them lucky folk who got this for a Christmas gift. Comment down below if you guys got this for a Christmas gift as well. Okay, I'm done with size comparisons now. I think it's time we move on to transformation now. So anyhow, starting off with this guy's very complicated to transform, but I've transformed this guy like multiple times, so I might memorize some steps. But anyways, the feet will fold in as well as this folding in as well. Same process implies with the other side. Moving on to the arms, this side piece will move outwards as well as this hand folding inwards, and then there will be this slot and a tab right here which will connect to each other. Rinse and repeat. The smokestacks move upwards. This entire gray section will untab and move downwards, as well as these folding to the other side. This whole thing will untab and then just leave it there for now. And then here comes all that engineering from an Optimus Prime from the TFP toy line. The grills open outwards. This whole assembly will untab, as well as this assembly too. The whole section of the smokestacks will open outwards, as well as by pushing them a little bit more, these panels will also open outwards as well. The chest pieces will open outwards like so. Might want to just move them out to there. The head will fold in place. The chest pieces will close in to a certain degree, and this entire assembly will form the top of the truck. Now, for some reason, I didn't touch on that there were some more steps to be worked on for the legs. As we are going to be moving them around a bit, starting off, it would be best to just close them together. The top wheels will shift downwards to the bottom. This whole entire waist joint will rotate, as well as this untabbing and moving outwards to that side. Oh, and then these back panels right here will fold in and will be aligned at the same degree as the top panel right here. After that, it's time for this spaghetti to be folded in nicely. The blue shoulder pad will move outwards. After that, this entire section will just close in right there. Make sure the blue shoulder pad is over this gray piece right here. After that, the arm will fold in, forming the side of the truck. And then this red tab will tab onto that slot located in between the chest and the torso. After that, the smokestack will close in. Same process applies to the other side. And then after that, both folded in sides will conjoin together, forming the nose of the Peterbilt. And then after that, both grills will conjoin together. It's just all these tabs are to be made sure that every single one of them are tabbed in. And then this section right here will also be made sure to tab in. And then after that, this entire section will fold in. There are certain tabs that should be plugged in, like this tab over here onto that slot, and then this tab onto that slot. Just make sure both of them are tabbed in. It helps for both of them to tab in simultaneously, thus holding the wheel in place. Same thing for the other side. And then after that, there's all this. What helps is for this entire section to be folded outwards, and then of course that should allow for some space for all of this to tab in. Just make sure that smokestack is tabbed in onto a tab on the side of the thigh, and then after that, push this entire thing inwards and make sure it goes through a few Nice. Slide that in. Anyways, here's Optimus Prime in his truck mode, which I believe is the Peterbilt 379. I could be wrong on that. But anyways, the paint job is a little bit more accurate. Now that there's, of course, this, what is this? Golden, yellow, or orange? I think it might be a little bit on the mix between yellow and golden shade right here. And then there's like this very odd weapon storage where this side of the gun will tab onto that slot on the side of the nose, and yeah, it looks a little funky but cool, I guess. However, I believe the primary source of weapon storage was like somewhere around here or here. But anyways, moving on to transform this thing. Of course, you gotta make sure all of the accessories are removed. The camera is extended because this thing is a little bit bigger. But anyways, this entire piece right here will untab and then move downwards. Same thing for the other side. The bottom will start to untab. This piece will move over, which will conjoin with a few tabs. This will also be straightened, as well as this tabbing onto that tab on the side. The wheel section will move inwards and tab into a series of pegs, and then the back doors will just simply close in. And now that I've memorized the weapon storage, I could finally present it to you, which was something that I didn't do in 2022 because I had zero clue how to do that. So this may be a little complicating, but that faint little tab right there will peg into the slot in between that sword. And then on the other side is basically the same thing except with the axe. However, in this time, the axe is going to tab into two pieces. And then the unnecessary piece right here will plug onto that slot in the middle. And then after that, the gun will just tab onto that slot right there. And there you go. Of course, we're missing something. The jetpack also tabs onto the arsenal piece to form into one trailer. It's just there's a series of steps to be done in order to do so. If it isn't already, this section will be folded. This panel will untab, and then this entire piece will be straightened. This assembly will move down. The tinier wing will just simply fold in like so, and then the wing will just close in right there. It's just this tab right here will be made sure to peg into that slot. Same thing for the other side. And lastly, you just slide it in. Once this entire piece is slided in, there will be a series of tabs and slot that will conjoin together. And then lastly, both Gatling guns will tab onto the bottom of the trailer. And then the last step is to make sure the trailer gets tabbed onto the truck. And there you go. There's Optimus Prime in the alternate mode with his trailer. Moving to the trailer, there is a little bit to be desired in terms of paint scheme. I feel like whatever budget was left to paint the trailer went over here. I probably would have had it go over here, as that would have given the trailer a little bit more of a standout in terms of painting, but it's okay with what we got now. Also, for some reason, the wheels on the left don't move around, nor do they touch the ground for them to roll. It's only the right wheels that only do that job. Why was this the case? I don't know. Probably budget. Oh, and if you want, you could actually open the doors over here. It's just you'll be met with a right angle. I also happen to notice there's a lot of like gappages in the sides and on the top, but that's of course for the hinge joints that move these pieces around. I never really understood why there should be hollow gappages wherever there's a swivel joint being placed, as wouldn't that make the plastic a little bit more prone to breaking, since there's not that much plastic reinforcing the joint to prevent any breakages? Be sure to let me know in the comments how that works, because I'd very much like to learn the context of that. Either way, it's no problem. This still looks really nice. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about for the alternate mode, as I have talked about this plenty of times, especially in other reviews, but let's see if that trailer hitch attaches onto any other figures. Like this guy. Cool. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all I have to say for this guy. Overall, pretty great Studio Series figure. If you can find him, I recommend you pick him up. If you are looking to get him, well, he's kind of a lot in the aftermarket. He goes for like $100 to $150 to even $200. Except for the Buzzworthy reissue. You could probably be lucky enough to find him for $80. If not, then I highly recommend the baiwei version, as recently they just came up with another version which I believe is more on the Dark of the Moon theme. As unlike the previous repaints of the baiwei Optimus Prime, this one actually has the broad shading on the arms. And then if you get the baiwei oversized trailer, yeah, that thing's pretty big. So yeah, definitely recommend looking into baiwei if you're interested. But Anyways, if you like what you saw in this video, be sure to slam that like button, share this with your friends as well, turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss another upload. Let me know how I did in this video, but most importantly, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. See ya!